There are many Doritos out there that have stood the test of time and the flavor tests of combat, but one rightfully stands above the rest for a few reasons, such as being Europe's first Mach 2 fighter, and of course, starting a long lineage of fighters that extends through over half a century of models and derivatives, with its direct successors still seeing combat even today. My favorite part about these videos is when I spent 2 weeks finishing the script and clip gathering and starting to edit the video, only for Gaijin to completely change something major, meaning I have to start over from scratch. You know, like fixing one of the biggest problems with the flight model of 2 of these planes after ignoring it for 2 years. Or completely redoing the entire matchmaker and BR system of this tier literally as I finish writing the script. You know, you could tell I'm not angry about this or anything. Therefore, please excuse my 2-week delay as I redid the entire video from scratch, since you guys voted for this plane, and without further ado, here is the Mirage 3 video. The Mirage III and its many derivatives are delta-wing aircraft that have been conceived in the fighter-interceptor role but adapted to many others such as fighter-bomber, recon, interdiction, frontline fighter, avionics and engine test beds, and all kinds of dumb shit. And most importantly, one of the most important snacks today from the Frito-Lay Chips Company. The Mirage III and its derivatives and War Thunder span across a plethora of BR ranges and are found in multiple different tech trees, so whether you are a fan of Doritos or a fan of Bugles, then strap in, because I'm going to teach you all about the Mirage III and its family in War Thunder. Just like all the famous planes of the Cold War, the story of Europe's first Mach 2 fighter begins shortly after the Korean War. The world had just witnessed how the more complex and sophisticated aircraft of their time just get shit on by simple, mass-produced, high-power, crude brute force planes as long as they were able to fly higher and faster. And so, as did any sane country after watching the MiG-15 wipe the floor with the Sabre over Korea, France also decided to build a fighter interceptor that flew higher and faster than everybody. But unlike the baby steps that the US and the Britain were taking in first building a transonic and a barely supersonic and an actual supersonic and then a Mach 2 fighter, France decided to just jump the gun and go straight to the last step. Within only 2 years, France had came up with 3 designs: the ugly Gok-Gok, the early career mode Kerbal plane, and the literal Dorito. The first 2 designs were utter shit and failed to meet the requirements set by the French government. This left only the Dassault MD-550 Delta Mystère as the viable option. But the Delta Mystère was also kinda shitter. You see, this was the early stage of supersonic fighters, so things like body area rule and actual aerodynamics were not a real thing yet. Also, the Mystère Delta was just a proof of concept and it wasn't even supersonic, it only had 2 tiny desktop fans in the engines. Shortly after, the British unveiled the Fairey Delta II, which very coincidentally looked basically identical to the Mystère Delta except for the nose section. And the gigachads at Dassault, instead of getting angry or claiming Britain stole the design, just went, you know what? Yeah, let's figure out this new Delta shit together. And they invited Britain to help test the Delta Fairey II on French soil and aid with data and studying of the new wing design. A year after the Fairey Delta II's testing in France first began, the first pre-production Mystère Delta was ready. With a few changes since its initial prototype, the model was colloquially renamed to the Dassault Mirage, and it performed its first flight on the 25th of June 1955. However, some glaring problems were found with the Mirage design now. First off, it could barely do Mach 1.1, which is a long shot away from the required Mach 2. Second of all, the Mirage was very fucking tiny. So tiny, in fact, that when the new requirement by the French government for carrying air-to-air missiles was ordained, it was simply impossible. After a lot of tinkering, the Dassault engineers managed to fit a whopping grand total of 1 whole missile to the Mirage. Crazy numbers, I know. Anyways, it was clear the Mirage was not gonna work. But Dassault really liked the Dorito design that they worked very hard on, so they decided to make a bigger Mirage and give it an incredibly cool and entirely new name to differentiate it from the Mirage. This is the Mirage II. It was powered using engines with a stupid name, and it still didn't fix all the problems of the Mirage I. It still wasn't Mach 2 capable, it only carried a grand total of 2 missiles this time, and yeah, it was kinda shit. Yeah, they never built the Mirage II because they realized how shit it was from the get-go, and instead, they designed an entirely new delta wing shape that needed new and a unique name to differentiate it from previous Mirages. The Mirage III and the Mirage IV. Getting very crazy with the creative names there, Dassault. Mirage III was a light to medium fighter interceptor with not 1, not 2, but 3 missiles this time. Very crazy. And more importantly, it was now big enough to fit an actual engine on board, which is what the Snecma Atar axial flow turbojet is. It's literally a fucking BMW 002 from a World War II German plane, but scaled up by 60% and with afterburner taped to the back. I am not making this shit up. So anyways, this new plane thing was now Mach 2 capable, in theory. And being armed with more than 2 missiles, the French government decided it was good enough. To get around the horrible acceleration of the axial flow engine, they straight up taped a rocket engine to the back of the plane. This is the SEPR-841 rocket motor, and its sole purpose is to make the interceptor intercept things faster. The Mirage IV was just a scaled-up Mirage III with double the engines and armament and a heavy fighter variant that was never built in its original form and instead readapted into the Mirage IV nuclear bomber. There was also the Mirage V, but we'll talk about that later. There was also a Mirage 2000 at one point. Just don't ask Dassault what happened to the Mirage 6 through Mirage 1999. Anyways, the new Mirage 3 was actually designed with more effort than a 20-second Kerbal Sandbox build, and incorporates actual design features of Mach 2 aircraft such as the transonic area rule and wing vortex generators. Crazy stuff for the time. The Mirage 3 was deemed very satisfactory and the actual pre-production model was ordered, titled the Mirage 3A. The 3A had a slightly better radar and the new and upgraded Atar 9B engine, which gave it just enough thrust to reach Mach 2 in one of the early test flights in 1958. The plane was deemed satisfactory, and as usual with the French Air Force, the actual production model would be the C model, not the A model. The C standing for chasseur, or fighter. The Mirage 3C and its twin-seat trainer model, the 3B, would first fly in late 1960 before being quickly adapted into service in 1961 after integration with minor upgrades such as the new Matra R550 Magic missile to replace the AIM-9B intended originally, and the new Matra R530 radar missile in the center to replace the outdated R511. This was the beginning of the Mirage story. Let's start with the base model. The Dorito 3 comes in 3 flavors in-game, 2 in the French tree and 1 available in a kosher variety. Let's start with the worst models. This is the Mirage 3C, with C standing for chasseur, or fighter. There is only 2 of these guys in-game and they're both at 10.0. The 3C in the French tree and its slightly downgraded export variant, the 3CJ, in the Israeli tech tree, indigenously known as the Shahak. These are very potent fighters at 10.0, although their playstyle is much more conservative than other funny planes around this BR. There is no sugarcoating this, the Mirage 3Cs have no flares, and unlike the F-104S, the F-104J, and the F-4C from previous videos, you find yourself on the opposite side of the same coin as the Harrier GR1 instead, which I hated. The Harrier had great acceleration, but no top speed for getting away from missiles. The Mirage 3 is the complete opposite of that, with decent top speed, but some of the shittiest acceleration I have ever seen on a jet past 700 km per hour. This wouldn't be a problem if you weren't a delta wing, but you are. So the second you even think about turning, you'll have lost all your energy, and God save your soul if you find yourself in a furball because your ass is not regaining energy before you die. Not having the best possible situational awareness of enemy planes around you in this thing will get you killed faster than 4chan can call me a slur. But enough about the downsides. I called these things potent fighters for a reason. So let's talk about the good sides of the Mirage 3C. The Mirages are deltas, so in a one circle, before you lose all your energy, you can absolutely clown on pretty much anything you see with guns. Just be careful when doing this and make sure no one else is nearby because your ass has no energy left to engage a second plane. If you don't pay attention to the surroundings, the last thing you're gonna hear before you die is "Monsieur, un second F5C has hit the furball." But besides that, pretty much everything about this plane is at least remarkable, if not great. You get magic ones, which since the buff a while back are absolutely cracked in terms of G-pull and range. You get a decent radar and avionics suite, acceptable cannons, and best of all, you get the French horsecock. This is the Matra R530 missile. It comes in both radar and IR variants, but we're only going to want to take the radar variant on this thing. At 10.0, and especially in down tiers, almost nobody takes chaff, if they even get countermeasures. This means your R530 is basically one guaranteed kill per game against any idiot who decides to climb. Just be wary that it's a pulse wave seeker, meaning a single piece of chaff will instantly defeat it, just like the R3R or the AIM-9C. But unlike the R3R or the AIM-9C, the R530 at 10.0 has the same range and kinematics as some mid-life model Sparrows, such as the AIM-7E, not to mention that many planes you'll be facing don't even get countermeasures. Only reason it's at a BR this slow, besides the easily fooled Seeker, is because you only get one of them on the centerline pylon. Hence the nickname, the French horsecock. Oh yeah, if you also like to LARP full interceptor duties in sim battles like I do, the Mirage 3 also gets the option to replace its guns with oxidizer tanks for the SEPR-841 liquid fuel rocket system, which can fling you into stupid altitudes and speeds in a short amount of time. Or if you really want to be that guy who really liked the ME262 with the butthole back at 7.3, you could theoretically save the Taco Bell booster for a dogfight and troll someone. Just be careful that vertical stealth fighting works quite a bit differently at this tier. Mostly because not everyone at the ME262's tier had missiles they could throw at you the second you slow down. All in all, the Mirage 3C is quite the fun plane, albeit definitely requiring a higher skill ceiling than usual due to not having flares, and abysmal energy retention and even worse energy recovery. If you're up for a slightly more challenging task, you can try the Mirage 3CJ in the Israeli tech tree. This is the Shahak, a Mirage 3C but with a few minor downgrades for export. For starters, you don't get the good French IR missile. Instead, you get the AIM-9D Sidewinder as your top missile, which isn't bad. It's still very good for 10.0, but it's definitely not as good as a Magic, to be honest. You still get the French horsecock for some high-altitude trolling, so at least there is that. You also get slightly downgraded avionics, and more importantly, you're missing the Doodoo Fart booster. Oy vey de gol, is Benjamin, we need 5 billion rocket to bomb neighboring nation. So yeah, you lack the SEPR-841 rocket booster system, but besides these two major differences, the Shahak is just a Mirage 3C with a desert camo. Or, if you're like me and you hate this exact cornfield diarrhea pattern of a desert camo, you can spend 200 GE and get what is basically the default skin of the Mirage 3C. Well, surely the other 200 GE skin is more unique than... It's literally the first skin but with different numbers. Gaijin can go Shahak on my fat nuts, I swear to God. Anyways, let's talk about the upgraded model. This is the French Mirage 3E, upgraded Mirage 3C found at the higher battle rating of 10.7. It's literally just a Mirage 3C, but they fixed your two main problems. Sorta. First of all, it has flares and chaff, but barely any. Remember, there is 3 American premium planes with over 200 flares each at your BR range because we can't have US wallet warriors suffering. You only get 45. And unlike the other planes you face that only get 45, you don't have infinite energy retention that defies the laws of physics, a bullshit damage model that can tank multiple missiles with no critical damage, and an overperforming heat signature that makes you almost impossible to lock with IR missiles outside spitting distance. But then you remember, there is planes with no flares at your BR range, so you're just thankful for whatever the snail gives you. The Mirage 3E also gets an upgraded engine over the 3C, but it's not that much stronger, so you'll still find yourself about to stall if you even think about turning. At least you get to regain your energy slightly faster now. The 3E also gets a Brazilian camo, which I can harness the power of to summon the Brazilians to my comment section to carry this video through the algorithm. Or get it killed by having YouTube recommend it to the wrong audience, like the time it decided to recommend a meme guide about an Indian plane below Bollywood and Indian drama videos for some fucking reason. All in all, the Mirage 3E serves as a direct upgrade to the 3C. And since the economy rework last year where Gaijin slashed the RP and SL costs of foldered vehicles in half, The Mirage 3E foldered under the 3C is absolutely worth getting, and some of the most fun you will have at 10.7 since the VR changes recently. The main fun of the Mirage 3E does not come from its great avionics or its incredible weaponry or abundant countermeasures, because it has none of that. Instead, it's the sheer trolling potential this plane has, provided the pilot flying it has some kind of skill. And you know who doesn't have skill? The F5C monkeys you'll be constantly facing in this thing. Trying to figure out how the mind of an F5C player works is as simple as trying to program a space shuttle launch using your dick while hanging upside down from the ceiling. Actually, I think that's what F5C players are doing while flying that thing, judging by how unexplainably bad they are. Waiter, more American premium jets please. I was just craving my daily serving of free RP and SL. So, at one point in the late 60s, the Israelis went to Dassault and asked them for a special tailored version of the Mirage III for desert operation. Their excuse was that the Sinai desert was always sunny with no clouds, so they wanted a Mirage III without the radar and intercept avionics to save every shekel they could on procurement and maintenance costs. This isn't even one of the offensive Israeli jokes in the video, those are for later in the Kfir section. No, seriously. It's not even a weight reduction or maneuverability thing, they straight up replaced the extra avionics behind the cockpit with a bigger fuel tank to keep the center of mass close to the original. They just wanted to save money on avionics and maintenance, I'm not making this up. I really wanted to make a joke here, but I'm gonna get demonetized for it. They literally only did this to save money, that's all you need to know for now. Anyways, this new variant was called the Mirage 5. The Mirage 5 was built and test flown and it started rolling off a production line, and the Israelis were flown to France to begin testing and training with it, and all was going well. However, in June 1967, after the Israelis decided that biting the hand that feeds them is the best idea, and after invading the puppet colony of their closest ally with a team of paratroopers, the then French president, and my favorite Monaco Grand Prix driver, Charles... the other Charles. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, so Charles de Gaulle realized that these guys will invade any country in their way to get what they want, even if it means genocide and war crimes. You know, Charles, it takes one to know one. Not wanting to commit the same mistake as before, of helping out violent invaders, he embargoed pretty much all French arms trade to Israel. As a result, the 50 Mirage 5s built for Israel were not allowed to leave French borders. The Israelis tried to pull a sneaky one in 1969. During the French winter, they kindly asked the French government if they could relocate the Mirage 5s to the tropical island of Corsica to continue training in sunny weather. Yeah, sure, that's a good point. The French were nice enough to even let them do it, originally. Until they caught the Israelis asking the airfield crew for long-range ferry tanks.
Hey Pierre, we're flying to Corsica. Can you mount these long-range ferry tanks on my Mirage?
Corsica is a 30-minute flight from here. You do not need fuel tank for that, Benjamin.
I know.
So why are you asking for ferry tanks big enough to fly the plane to Israel?
No particular reason, really.
You see, while the French are indeed not the smartest, even they are not dumb enough to fall for this. Anyways, the Israelis' grand plan was foiled, and just kidding, it was a cover-up story. During this time, the Mossad agents had already infiltrated Dassault, stolen all the blueprints for the Mirage 5 and its engine, and brought them back to Israel, where they promptly began producing their own unlicensed rip-off of the Mirage 5, called the Nesher. A stolen knockoff because they can't make their own unique planes and they have to resort to stealing designs. It's just like China producing planes, but less funny, because China was at least a broke-ass communist country when they started doing that. Anyways, after this, the Israelis accepted a full refund from France, who didn't know they stole the Mirage 5, and just built their own Mirage 5 at home to save the maximum amount of shekels. France was left with a bunch of Mirage 5s that they incorporated into service, while also selling off a bunch to countries like Egypt and Belgium, and even modifying a few into nuclear bombers for Pakistan, of all countries. I don't know what the French were cooking with that one. There are 3 Mirage 5s in War Thunder, 2 in the French tree and 1 in the Israeli tree. This is the Mirage 5F, a 10.0 supersonic fighter bomber in the French tree. It's like a Mirage 3C, but worse. You still don't have flares, but now, instead of at least having the funny radar missile, you just don't have a radar to begin with. You still have no energy or tension, and overall it's just a sad plane at 10.0. I didn't enjoy flying it, even though it's workable as a flareless plane. The only improvement over the Mirage 3C is that you get an RWR. Having one of the worst RWRs at this tier is better than not having an RWR at all. And I just cannot go on without pointing out how stupid the name of this RWR is. Hey Pierre, what should we name our new radar warning receiver for the Mirage?
Oh, I don't fucking know. Mirage detector?
Holy shit, Pierre, you're a genius. Yeah, it's literally called the Mirage detector. I don't... You know, I'd like to thank the people at Dassault for writing the jokes for me in this video. I don't even have to do this anymore. Yeah, but still, the gameplay in this thing's about as fun as interesting as choosing a grass type as your starting Pokemon. Boring. Moving on to the Goyim Bomber 2000, this is the Nesher, a Mirage 5 built not under license in Israel. It's just a Mirage 5 with American ordnance. So instead of shitty French ordnance, you get good American ordnance, and instead of the good French missiles, you get the slightly worse American missiles. All in all, still not much to write home about. You're just a Mirage 5, but your air-to-air missiles are slightly worse. And the bombs and rockets are better, I guess. The biggest difference you'll see from the French one is the pee-pee-poo-poo paint scheme. Still boring. Then you have the Mirage 5 BA, a special Belgian export variant fitted and upgraded by the Belgians, found at 10.7 in the Belgian line of the French tree. This is a Mirage 5, but with some more differences. For starters, it has worse IR missiles than all of the others. It gets AIM-9Js instead of AIM-9Gs or Magics. But what it loses in missile range, it makes up for in having flares. The Belgians just slapped the old waffle iron under the plane and decided to short-circuit it to deploy enough sparks that it counts as a flare dispenser. And to top it all off, they took the ducting fan from their Coquet oven and strapped it to the engine's extra compressor stage, giving it a bit of extra thrust compared to previous Mirages. So in playstyle, it's a Mirage 3E that trades the good missiles for slightly more maneuverability and a stronger engine. Honestly, a worthy side grade that's worth checking out to see whether you like it or not. Finally, while it's not really a Mirage 5, it shares enough design elements with the Mirage 5 that it counts as one, despite actually being based off the Mirage 3. During the 60s, the Swiss wanted a low-altitude attack aircraft. The French jumped in by removing the radar from the Mirage 3, giving it an elongated airframe, pop-out canards that got nicknamed the Mustache by the test pilots, and most importantly, the ATAR 9K engine from the upcoming Mirage F1, giving it an insane amount of thrust. This is the Milan. And this is the lowest BR Mirage in game, sitting at 4.3. Wait, shit, wrong Milan. This is the Milan, and this is the lowest BR Mirage in game, sitting at a BR of 9.7. This is a dedicated fighter bomber with an impressive bomb load and top speed at 9.7, but be wary, because you still have no flares, no good missiles, no useful avionics, no bitches, and no guided ground ordnance. Well, I guess you have the singular AS-30, but like, who the fuck is gonna use that? Oh, and your best missiles are AIM-9Bs, so good luck relying on those to get missile kills. But honestly, that's not gonna matter much, because the upgraded engine and funny canards on this thing mean you can utterly clown on almost anything you face in a dogfight. But sadly, this is a removed premium that comes back like once a year or something for an exorbitant amount of GE, so I'd only recommend this thing if you really like Swiss aviation or you want to collect all the French Doritos. But if you can ever get this thing on sale for an acceptable price, honestly, pick it up. It's not a good plane per se, and it's definitely not easy to use, but holy crap, it's some of the most fun I've ever had at 9.7 in a very long time. Having an upgraded Mirage flight performance at the comically low BR of 9.7 allows you to absolutely troll the enemy planes in a dogfight, especially since everything above 10.0 has moved up in BR recently, meaning you get even more down tiers than usual in this thing, for now, until Gadget up tiers it, because we cannot have nice things in this game. But until that happens, this plane can absolutely keep diddling kids in their premium planes harder than a streamer wearing sunglasses. Anyways, the Swiss were not the only ones that wanted to stick a comically large engine and canards on a Mirage 5 to create the ultimate budget fighter bomber, so let's look at the other canarded Mirage now. Remember how the Swiss wanted to stick a comically large engine and canards on a Mirage 5 to create the ultimate budget fighter bomber? And remember how we said the Israelis' quote-unquote indigenous aircraft that are about as unique and indigenous as China's? Yeah, so during the 60s, Israel also wanted a cheap supersonic fighter bomber. So they modified the Mirage 5 airframe with canards to enhance low-speed performance, more hardpoints to maximize the amount of bombs we can drop on hospitals in one day, and most importantly, they also realized the Atar 9C engine of the Mirage 5 was straight ass. But they didn't get access to the latest cracked-up 9K because of the horrible relations with France at this point, so, using their new best friend and ally, they managed to acquire a General Electric J79 engine from their sugar daddy in the US. Imagine this, the Phantom was fat, massive, not aerodynamic plane that flew just because of the thrust of the two massive engines. Now imagine we take one of those engines and put it in a Dorito-shaped kite that has less than half the weight. This is the Kfir Canard, the first Mirage variant. It's easily one of, if not the fastest plane of its BR. And its thrust-to-weight ratio is a complete joke, giving it great acceleration at all flight regimes. You still don't get much flares and only 2-hole AIM-9Gs, but with your shekel-stored canards and comically cracked-up engine, you could dance it out and bust it down sexual style, goated with the sauce on God and for real against those goyims on the enemy team. You can comfortably one-circle F5Cs all day and win. It's really funny. Call these F5C players Libyan Airlines Flight 114 how I'd be shooting them down indiscriminately. And as a premium, this thing is a very good grinder as well. The loadout I recommend for grinding is 2 AIM-9Gs, 4 rocket pods, and 2 small 500-pounder bombs. This way, you can use your insane speed to rush a single base, get the rockets and bombs off, which is just enough to destroy that one base, and now you have a clean and lightweight Dorito with 2 AIM-9Gs for trolling anything you see in a dogfight. Little note in post-editing, literally the second I finish editing this section, Gaijin decides to go finally fix the bug that causes rockets to deal damage to bases, almost a year after ignoring it. So the new loadout I recommend for bombing bases quickly in this thing is the 2 AIM-9Gs of course, 6 500-pounders on one side, and 2 1,000-pounders on the other side. It's ugly, not symmetrical, but the most efficient and dragless way to do this. Wow, Donut, a plane that can reliably grind bases without sacrificing its dogfight performance, has great flight handling allowing it to win almost all dogfights it finds itself in, and it's a premium? Surely there is a catch. Well yes, there is. So let's talk about the few downsides now. First off, you have a pretty small amount of countermeasures, 36 specifically, which is barely enough for most missiles at your BR. You also get a pretty hot engine, which is not helping the case here. Second, you have a radar rangefinder that will give away your position to anyone you point your nose at within 10 kilometers if they have RWR. So please turn off the radar rangefinder using your normal radar keybinds to avoid alerting the entire enemy team to your location. And more importantly, to stop annoying your teammates by hard spiking their RWR on takeoff. And finally, just remember that you're still a Delta Wing. Yeah, you may be able to recover energy quickly with that Kerbal tier super engine you have, but that doesn't change the fact that you bleed speed just as fast in a turn. All in all, the Kfir Canard is a very fun and forgiving fighter, and also a good grinder as a premium jet, and most definitely worth picking up the next time it goes on sale if you want to start a new tree to grind, or just want a plane that can print Infinite SL. Warning, Infinite SL requires dogfighting skill. Bots or numbskull bombers with no brain should go back to their F4S instead. Donut with mustache is not responsible for financial loss resulting from purchase of Kfir Canard resulting from pre-existing conditions including heart problems, pregnancy, pre-existing cancer growth, skill issue, lung problems, lack of spatial awareness, lack of dogfighting knowledge, and general lack of skill. Side effects of Kfir Canard may include suddenly finished Israeli airtree, millions of unspent SL, sudden urge to bomb refugee camps, hospitals, and allied shipping routes. Consult your doctor before purchasing Kfir Canard to know if it's right for you. Or I guess don't, because our glorious IDF just bombed your local hospital yesterday. Anyways, this is the Kfir C2, which we will be using the Ecuadorian skin on, because I need to save some of the Israeli jokes for later. The Kfir C2 is just the Kfir Canard, but they made the upgrades bigger. Remember the bigger engine? Well, they made it even bigger-er. And remember the Canards? Well, they made them even Canardier. This was a lengthy section where I rant about how the Kfir Canard, which has weaker wings than the C2 in real life, somehow rips its wings less than the C2 because of premium bias, but Gaijin finally fixed that a good year and a half later after ignoring it, because I was literally just finishing up the script for the video, so thank you very much, Gaijin. Anyways, back to our Ecuador special. The Kfir C2 also gets access to the Python 3 at 11.7, the single best non-IRCCM IR missile at 11.7. I remember this thing was worth like, what, $50 on the Gaijin market? Then it shot up to almost 200 overnight after it got Python 3s without moving up in BR for some reason. The Kfir C2 in-game is absolutely bananas, and not because Ecuador is the 5th largest producer of bananas in the world, which we honor by covering our Dorito with banana decals. The Kfir C2 is an even more cracked up, even more upgraded, and even more aggressively stupid Mirage 5 than the Kfir Canard ever was. The risk versus reward is so much higher than it already was, it's kinda retarded now. Your stronger engine, 40G high-speed bananas, and lightened airframe mean you can absolutely clown on pretty much anything you face in a dogfight. Gaijin fixed the lack of potassium in the wings, so they don't fall off anymore like when I first recorded the video. You'd no longer have to worry about finding the perfect balanced equilibrium right on the border of holy shit this thing is a UFO and fuck my wings just ripped. But instead, you can just focus on clowning on people in a dogfight. And once you unlock that potential, it's just a matter of a dice roll whether you get to molest wallet warriors and down tiers for free kills, or you take a banana up the culo from any IRCCM bananas and Fox 3s in a up tier. Oh, did I mention? You still only get the grand total of 36 whole countermeasures. So have fun pre-flaring that AIM-9M1BR step above you for some fucking reason. Don't even think about bringing enough chaff to defeat the Phoenix spam if you get up-tiered. But once you figure out how to dodge the bullshit missiles and how to position yourself right, the Kfir C2 can absolutely obliterate the enemy team harder than Ecuador obliterated Qatar in the World Cup qualifiers. And once you master this plane, all I can say is, well, this gameplay is absolutely bananas. The Kfir C7 is not only the peak of the Mirage 3 lineage in game, but also the peak of the Dunning-Kruger curve. Apparently the bigger engine was not big enough, so they put a Saturn V in the back of this fucker. The new bigger engine puts out around 1,000 more pounds of thrust than even the cracked up Yeeter from the Kfir C2. As a result, the Kfir C7 is one of the best accelerating planes in the entire damn game at supersonic flight regimes. This thing goes faster than an Iron Dome interceptor missile and turns harder than Israeli elections when a right-wing party is involved. You get double the Python 3s of the C2 as well to punish any paragliders that enter your airspace and don't watch their surroundings. If an enemy jet makes the grave mistake of entering a dogfight with you, they will have no time to contemplate and ask, what the fuck, before your turn rate throws enough sanctions at them to dingle their Pringle. Go gadget cracked up Dorito plane. And if this already sounds fun, always remember that there is an even better version with Fox 3s and IRCCM missiles that we can get in the future. You also get 2 more hard points for more ground ordnance, but let's be real here. When you're given a biblically accurate, a Torah-accurate Dorito Delta Wing, why on earth would you go bombing bases in Air RB? They don't even look like hospitals or schools. Ugh, boring targets. No thanks. Instead, I prefer to use my full Python loadout to shoot down civilian airliners over international airspace that I decided to just occupy and pretend is mine. I mean, come on, what's the worst that can happen? The UN is gonna send me an angry letter asking me to stop? Yeah, whatever. The Kfir C7 overall has one of the best glow-ups of any plane in game covered on this channel. It went from a dogshit 11.7 with only AIM-9Gs that got raped all day by R-27ERs and AIM-7Ms to the funny 11.3 Dorito with Pythons that tickles all planes that come near it. And now, after the decompression BR changes, even at 12.0 this thing absolutely molests the enemy team harder than an occupation force soldier in Gaza. Seriously, I got this thing and played it in early 2023 when it only had AIM-9Gs and got molested by F-16s all day. Call me 007 because I had 0 kills, 0 assists, and 7 deaths before I rage quit and never touched this piece of shit again. But now, over a year later, this thing absolutely slaps. I want to call this thing a war crime because of how good it is, but the last time I called the Israeli vehicle a war crime on my videos, I got demonetized because someone got butthurt. But anyways, before I get demonetized the second time this year and invoke the flood of propaganda bots in the comments sections, I just want to say that the Kfir C7 is a very fun, high-skill, high-reward plane. Just as with things like the MiG-21 BIS or the Harriers from previous videos, your plane has mediocre avionics and ordnance compared to contemporary fighters, but it's your insane speed and flight performance that make you truly a fun plane to whiz around in. All it takes is fooling one cocky 4th gen idiot to start turn fighting you, so you could claim you are defending yourself because he attacked you first as you absolutely wiped the floor with him with your superior American technology. If God had wanted these 4th gens to live, he would not have created me. And brother, I am God's chosen Delta Wing. Okay, let's spade your Doritos now, starting with the Mirage 3 on the Mirage 3C. Get the Matra R511 not because it's good or useful, but because you need it to get the rest of the missiles. With this knowledge, get the R530 Horsecock radar missile. The Mirage 3E skips the R511 and goes straight to the 530, so instead get Flare Chaff at rank 1 before the 530 to chaff away those pesky R3Rs and AIM-9Cs. The Shahak gets none of that, so just get Compressor or Fuselage Repair at rank 1 before getting the AIM-9D at rank 2. You don't get a radar missile yet like the French ones. After that, get the new boosters for all the Mirages before moving on to rank 3. Starting rank 3, get the G-Suit and the Wings Repair. And finally, at rank 4, get the Magic 1, which is an absolute crime at this BR. Or if you're playing the shiny Shekel Shahak, now is the time to get the radar missile for some reason. After getting your top missile, go back and work on whatever performance upgrades you want. Moving on to the Mirage 5. For the French 5F, you get all your air-to-air missiles stock, so focus on performance upgrade in whatever order you prefer. For the Nesher, you only get Chefrier 2 and AIM-9D stock, and the AIM-9Gs are researchable at rank 4. The only other difference from the Mirage 5F are the wider ground ordnance options and the gun pods. So for ARB, just focus on the performance upgrades in the AIM-9G. Then the Belgian Mirage 5BA. You get 2 AIM-9B stock, and you get Flare Chaff at rank 1. The AIM-9Js and the new boosters will be your next target at rank 2. Then the G-Suit, Wings Repair, and the rest of the performance upgrades. Finally, for the Milan, start with damage control and dry docking so you don't end up like the pride of the Russian Navy. Then get the Fire Division and Smokescreen to protect yourself further against British Premium Wallet Warriors in Operation Catapult. Then get the improved Rangefinder, Propeller Replacement, and Primary Armament targeting to snipe enemy ships harder than the Algerian economy. Finally, get the Sea Mines for trolling people on cap points, then new pumps and ammo wetting. Then go back and work on whatever modifications you want. Moving on to the Kfirs, first up for the Kfir Canard, start with pondering your life choices because you spent $70 on a boneless Dorito copy-paste premium. How do you feel? Was it worth it? You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you guys, yeah, it was worth it. I got my Kfir Canard during a 50% off sale last year and I've been loving it ever since. Anyways, moving on to the Kfir C2, start with compressor, AIM-9G, new booster, G-suit, wings repair, cover, Python 3 and the engine before going back and working on whatever you want. You may notice we left behind the flare chaff modification. Yeah, you only get 36 countermeasures and I'm gonna be honest with you, a flare chaff balance would be useless on this thing. You need all the flares you can to fight the voices in your head, which sound a lot like IRCCM missiles. And let's be real here, if you run into a radar missile you cannot kinematically defeat, chances are you are not going to chaff it either, with your grand total of 18 whole chaff pops. Assuming you brought a 50-50 flare chaff mix. Finally, the Kfir C7. Start with Kfir 2, then the AIM-9D, and new boosters at rank 2. For rank 3, start with the G-suit, before getting the AIM-9G and wings repair. At last, for rank 4, get the Python 3 and the engine upgrades, then go back and work on the rest of the performance mods and maybe the bombs, depending on how many hospitals you feel like bombing today. Good job! That's the Mirage Dorito gang spaded and ready to rumble. And there you have it. That's the Mirage 3 and its derivatives in War Thunder as of the Seek and Destroy update. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot to me. Quick little announcement, I won't be holding the usual vote for the next plane to cover in the series, since I instead plan on updating the first of the 3 original meme guides, which are severely outdated now, and also were made with the old meme guide format which was shorter and less entertaining. So until next time, go out there, don't crash on takeoff, and go show those pesky F5s what your angry Dorito can do in a turn fight. See ya next time.